Sometimes guns, weapons, and just general video game actions make absolutely no sense whatsoever, even to your average person who isn't a weapons expert. These are all goofy examples, but we need to lighten the mood today. So we're gonna talk about video game gun logic that makes no sense. We've talked about this in the past, but we're doing a part 2 now, and we got a lot. So let's get started off with number 10. We're gonna start off super dumb here and ask the question, the age-old question, where does Doom Guy put all of his weapons? Or where does Grand Theft Auto character keep all his weapons? Or Max Payne? Or insert anybody with a massive inventory of weapons and no backpack to hide it in. Video games are magical digital worlds created by talented video game developers where you can completely get lost in a new world, live out your own fantasies, and see a man pull a shotgun out of his ass. That's what it always seems like. It's like the gun always instantly teleports right to them, and you just always ask yourself, where do you keep all those things? At least Resident Evil started to make that inventory management kind of seem like it had some logic to it, but at the end of the day, still, most video game weapons are completely pulled out of thin air. Next, over at number 9, of course, we got to acknowledge reloading. So in games, people throw away their magazines constantly because you're reloading constantly. You know, you might be one of those people, you fire 2 shots, gotta reload. It's like an impulse, right? Interestingly enough, though, most of the time you don't lose the ammo in the mag you just threw away. It is somehow just still magically ending up in your inventory or your ammo count. And in some games, while that's happening, the logic still breaks because you're picking up ammo from bad guys where they may have magazines that are half empty. How does any of that work? That's not realistic, people will shout, but at the very least, at least it's less annoying to play and it's more fun. Still, when you stop and think about it, even somebody who barely knows what a gun even is in real life, it's still pretty hilarious. Like, if only life could be that convenient. Also, I think as a side note, it's worth pointing out how funny it is that sometimes you can collect ammo just by walking over it. How does that work? Are you absorbing the bullets into your feet? I'm not a comedian and I apologize for that joke, but if you think about it, it is another thing where it's game design kind of making things a bit more convenient. It's always interesting to see which type of game handles it which way. There are some games with a ton of realism where you got to manually bend down, click on the ammo, pick it up, put it into your inventory, and then there are some games where, zoop, it's instant. Gotta say, when you go from playing a game where you have to manually pick up everything in the environment to a game where it's auto pickup, playing those 2 types of games back to back, gotta say the auto pickup feels really freaking sweet. Next, over at number 8, let's talk about the concept where in video games, silencers usually make guns drastically weaker. Now, some games try to make this a bit more realistic by just making it so silencers lower the velocity of a bullet so it gets weaker at long distances rather than flat out making it weaker, but in reality, the difference wouldn't be nearly as big in real life. Because if it was real life, silencer or not, like a gun and a bullet and somebody's brain, it's gonna be bad news, whatever is attached to the weapon, right? And while we're talking about this, I think the bigger thing, the thing that needs to be acknowledged more is that the fact that these things are whisper quiet. Now again, we're not experts or anything, but you know, according to most examples, silencers and suppressor type things in real life aren't a perfect fix and only reduce the sound of a gunshot, but they're still very present. It's really hard to hide something like that. Where in video games, you could have 2 guys standing practically right next to each other and a silenced pistol headshot with one guy, the other guy won't even notice, he won't even hear that. That doesn't make sense because even the most muffled shot, realistic or not, somebody else nearby would definitely hear something, right? And not just shrug their shoulders and walk away. I don't know, it's still cool. Sam Fisher's job would be a lot harder if we just went for full realism. Now, next over at number 7, let's jump over from the gun and talk about the gun's best friend, the knife, who apparently, according to video games, is 10 times more powerful than a gun. There are so many games where the knife somehow is like a one-hit instant kill, while, you know, guns require multiple shots to an enemy to take them down. And you know, look, we're not even talking about like a cool stealth animation or like takedown animation where it's a perfect knife to the back of the head like a sneaky ninja guy. No, we're talking about just like clicking the melee button and swinging the knife and a dude goes down and then another dude takes a full magazine of bullets. It's a video game, right? There's always going to be rules, there's always going to be certain logic to really make things fun, but that one's always kind of funny. Shout out to the Crocodile Dundee guy in the comments who's going to explain knives to us. Next, over at number 6, another silly nitpick is games where you always have your gun pointed up, even in situations where you really shouldn't. Especially sometimes in first-person shooter games, the gun is held where it's on screen, where you can see it at all times. And if you think about where the view is, where the character's face and eyes are, and where the gun is, they're always holding that gun very high. Sometimes even when talking to NPCs. Yeah, they might make it so you can't shoot, or the weapon slightly points downward, but still, it doesn't make sense a guy walking around carrying a gun that jacked up. If you think about it in a first-person shooter, it kind of makes ADS, or aiming down the sights, that much funnier because the character's already holding the gun high up, and then they just hold the gun even higher up. Not to mention, I mean, we haven't talked about viewing angles and stuff, and how in a lot of games, someone holding a two-hand weapon basically is holding it right up against their face just so it can be on screen and look cool. But hey, it's just silly logic stuff, we can be forgiving. But over at number 5, if we're talking about the way guns are held, let's mention hip firing, or not really. In a lot of games, and specifically first-person shooters, hip firing doesn't actually ever look like hip firing, specifically because of what we mentioned in the last point, where guns are held up pretty high. Third-person shooters get a little better for it. One of the best examples is the TMP from Resident Evil 4. With that, hip firing is definitely firing from the hip. But in most other games, not so much. It's more like just not looking down the sights, firing instead, which is more akin to blind fire than anything else. But hey, gun go boom, it looks cool, whatever. Over at number 4, something that really annoys us is how in a lot of games, the bad guys never run out of ammo. There are so many games out there where you're dealing with extremely scarce ammo and limited inventory, and yet the bad guys are just firing endlessly at you, and it's really frustrating sometimes. A good example is The Last of Us, where, ammo is extremely limited. It feels like the bad guys are just shooting at you forever, and it feels at least like they're never gonna run out of ammo. Then, of course, you go and loot them, and they've only got like 2 or 3 bullets on them. It's like, what the hell, dude? Did you waste them all on me? Are they all in the wall behind me? Or is the game rigged to just give me a challenge while rewarding my victory with just a couple of bullets so that I can still feel the tension? That's definitely what it is, but it's really funny. It's like every bad guy in every shooter video game has the infinite ammo bandana that Solid Snake had in Metal Gear Solid. But hey, I digress. At number 3, let's talk about how crazy accurate you can sometimes be while blind firing. Some games let you basically snipe enemies when shooting around corners blind. It can be really ridiculous. It only technically makes sense if your dude is psychic or something, because wow. And it depends on how it's implemented. Some games, blind fire still will give you a little bit of a reticle, or at least some sort of aiming apparatus on screen. And because you're a player and you've probably played a couple of games, you can still probably be surprisingly accurate with that. And it's really funny to think that in real life, you'd be hiding behind something and just holding your gun up, waving it in the air, shooting, trying to hit someone. But in a video game, it's so easy to take advantage, and sometimes you feel like a god. And I'm not even talking about the gun that could actually fire around corners from the earlier Ghost Recon games with the little camera. No, just a straight up gun firing over your head or around a corner without looking. While we mentioned that bad guys having unlimited ammo is really unfair, I think this is unfair towards them. But hey, you got to take advantage of every tool you have, right? Down at number 2, let's talk about the fact that normal human characters can walk around with giant miniguns. Now, these things are seemingly crazy heavy. Even in games where it makes it so you move slower while using one, it's still pretty ridiculous that anyone can just carry around one of these things pretty easily, doing whatever they want. I mean, an example, Uncharted 2. Supposedly very normal human Nathan Drake can walk around with a giant minigun just fine. And then of course, there's all the ammo. How are you handling all of that crazy ammo? At least Vulcan Raven in the original Metal Gear Solid had that giant barrel of ammo on its back that made for a really awesome boss battle, but still, how does all that work? It goes back to what we said at the beginning. How do these characters just pull them out of their ass and carry them around? And how do most video game miniguns not just run out of ammo in seconds? I don't know, but it's really funny when you think about it. Now down to number 1, we got to acknowledge something stupid, and if you're a stickler for this type of story stuff, it's definitely going to bother you. So getting shot in a cutscene oftentimes very much equals instant death, while getting shot in game, you're just fine. It's a little scratch. Your health went from 100 to 98. Movies are guilty of this too, whether it's a sword fight or a gunfight. Characters will run around doing amazing things until suddenly there's that one story-related gunshot or bullet that'll slow things down. We can even talk about how quickly some players recover from gunshot wounds where in-game you just heal yourself and you're fine, where in cutscenes, sometimes they'll need to go away in hiding or get helped by a mentor and slowly rest and heal for a couple weeks. I don't know how these video game characters do it, but it's really stupid and it's really fun. And it's also making me think that we should do this type of video, but for swords. So let us know in the comments. These are 10 dumb, crazy gun logic or concepts, if you will, that we think absolutely make no sense. We just wanted to talk some smack and have some fun today, so let us know in the comments what you're thinking. And like I said, if you have any other examples, specifically maybe even with swords for a sword-related video, let us know. If you had fun with this video, though, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would very much appreciate it. That's it. That's all we need. But as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.